Welcome everyone. Welcome to today's edition of HFS Unfiltered, where we are going to discuss the power of collaboration and bring the concept of what HFS calls the one ecosystem to life. My name is Saurabh. I lead our research and advisory services here at HFS, and I'll be your host today. And I am delighted to be joined by three wonderful guests from two very powerful companies, IBM and SAP. So let me start by asking them to introduce themselves, name, rank, serial number, and I'll start with you, Stacy.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having us today. We're super excited about this discussion. I'm Stacy Short. I'm the Global Vice President at IBM, responsible for SAP relationship around the IBM Consulting side of the business. And I've spent my last 30 years working with SAP, both in the field implementing the product and now spending the last 14 years managing the partnership here. So we're excited to talk to you about this 52-year partnership today.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Stacy. Jason?
Saurabh and team and those listening, I'm Jason Kelley, and I lead the strategic partner and ecosystem business for our IBM Consulting team globally.
Last but not the least, Christine.
Really excited to be here to discuss the IBM SAP partnership team today. But my name is Christine Rhoads. I'm the SAP Vice President of Business Development, responsible for the global IBM partnership. And in that capacity, I work closely with Stacy and Jason, developing the strategy, enablement plans, and how we operationalize our partnership.
So, Jason, let me ask you this, right? Before we jump into the IBM and SAP relationship, IBM sort of has everything under the sun, right? Why do you need partners?
So that's a pretty good way to set me up, Saurabh, with the everything under the sun. But it's a good perspective, because coming from where we've been to where we are now, I think that might be a market perception. So going with that, so we have literally gone the opposite direction with our company. So I do believe it was a bit of a layup. So I do appreciate it, because we had a larger portfolio. We made some very strategic shifts in this company, where led by our current CEO, before he was CEO, we made a declaration that, look, we're going to go on an open platform. We're going to buy Red Hat. 34 billion reasons why we need to continue to make that successful. And then we said we're also going to spin out what's not important for our company, and we spun out Kyndryl. So I'm starting with that to show that we're actually have shedded significant parts of the company and brought in significant parts to say, look, this is what we're going to do. And we really refined it to say that we are a hybrid cloud AI company. And that's very simple, because you can say it in one sentence and you get it done. And then coming into strategic partners and ecosystem, we took it a step further to say, look, first we're going to model something often something that's 52 years old. What is a partnership? It's a 52-year-old partnership with SAP, and it stands the time. It says, look, this is, but why does it exist? It's because we do some things that are very simple. Is that we make commitments together, we communicate, we do it consistently, and it equals one thing, which is trust. That's what we have with SAP. It's a trusted relationship. And then you say, so why not just SAP? Well, of course, we have other strategic partners and other ecosystem partners. And what we've now focused on over the last 3 years, we've built a business that now consists of just about 50% of our overall IBM Consulting business. I'll say that again. Our strategic partner and ecosystem business is about 50% of our overall business. So it does say we're making a bet here. And we're making a bet on our ecosystem and strategic partners, and not just by setting up individual groups. And when I say that an SAP business and a Microsoft business, it's saying, look, we're going to have them work together, and we're going to orchestrate that. And we're going to make sure that they're working together as an ecosystem, because that's what our clients, you look at our major clients, they don't have just one thing. And they also are going the other direction. They don't want everything. They don't want everything on the face of the earth. They say, these are the 3 things we're going to make a bet on. And we are making a bet that SAP is going to be there more than 90% of the time, and we're going to be with them, and that we're going to be able to help with the other components of the ecosystem to help bring that together successfully for the client. Then finally, as a differentiator, because others could say that, now I really get to the heart of your question. As we've said, these are the only things that we do in IBM. Those are also the things that we bring to bear as IBM Consulting with our strategic partners and ecosystem. Because just saying I can pull together the right recipe is one thing, but then to say I also have some of those ingredients so I can do it quicker, better, and faster than others, such as Watson X, such as components like Maximo, such as security capabilities and other partners such as Palo Alto. We're going to bring those things together and we say, look, here's your starter kit. You can choose because it's clients first, but with a point of view for us. We want to walk in and make sure we're doing that. That's the differentiator, Saurabh, and that's where I do believe, and we'll talk about it more. This thought of, is when you're talking to a client, is your ecosystem stronger than your competitor's ecosystem? Can you do it quicker, better, faster because of how you're making your select, not all your rainbow buffet of products, but your select ones and solutions that you're pulling together that are specific for your industry. That's a differentiation, and that's what we bring with IBM, with that industry expertise, the distinct partnerships, and being able to bring that together even with our own technology.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, Jason. Let me ask that same question to you, Christine, if I may. If you could describe what's in it for SAP and what's the evolution of this partnership with IBM, and also mention a little bit about this new Gen AI related partnership features and functionality that I think we are all very interested to learn more about.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that, Rob. Yeah, every few years, SAP and IBM announce a next phase of our partnership, and we're always focusing on modernizing the strategy around delivering, business transformations and aligning that to both our corporate strategies from an IBM and SAP perspective. But most importantly, we always align to our customers' priorities. We announced in 2016, we announced the digital transformation initiative. And then in 2020, we announced the evolution partnership initiative. And those things are really focused on helping drive the value to our clients. So the evolution of our partnership just keeps changing over time. About 3 years ago, we launched SAP Rise. And it has really made an impact. It's a game changer for both our partnership and our joint customers. And IBM has embraced that wholeheartedly as a partner. And for SAP, it's really our major motion that we go to market with. We've added in AI now, and as you heard, the generative AI partnership that we recently announced, we'll talk about that a little bit. I think Stacy's going to really focus in on, what the value generation partnership is about, but it's a critical aspect of what we're going to be doing together as we go forward. As we look at Rise, we really focus that and tailor it, as Jason mentioned, around industries, really bringing those, getting things sticky, trying to help our customers transform in the best ways we possibly can. And, we worked with IBM on a premium supplier offering recently. Over the last couple of years, we've had that really has helped us. They were the first consulting company to be able to offer that with infrastructure, technical managed services, and business transformation, along with application management, all under one bundle. So that's a differentiator that we did with IBM. Not many of our partners were allowed to do that. So, and then finally, with regards to Rise, we announced the breakthrough partnership with IBM a couple of years ago, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of customers and helped them adopt to the Rise solution. And we not only, when we announce a partnership together and collaborate around it, I would say one of the things that differentiates us as partners is that we get the sponsorship at the top level. We also enable down to the local level. and we get impressive results. We scorecard across customers, hundreds of customers, joint account plans, showcasing industry motions, and we have customer success stories, and we all build that out. And our partnership has evolved and really honed in on the fact that you can't just do that, strategic initiative at the top level. You have to operationalize it. And I think between IBM and SAP, we're actually masters at collaborating around the strategy and setting the bar, but we also are masters at execution and striving, most importantly, to make our joint customers successful. So that's really where we focus. From an AI perspective, we've really teamed up to help enterprises harness the power of AI and use it as a as a competitive advantage. We did that in the past. The last about a year and a half ago, we also partnered to embed IBM Watson into SAP Start so that SAP and IBM could partner and create more effective and efficient user experiences for our customers. And our partnership has changed significantly over the years, but what's driven our evolution is our shared vision of delivering value to our joint customers and meeting them where they are in their cloud journeys, which is really critical. We use lots of different models to go meet our customers where they are in their journey. And that's really what I would say is our differentiator as well. Along with that, as Jason pointed out, trust and collaboration and transparency.
Yeah, Christine, I'll pick up from there, sort of in support of those priorities. What I would say is, we really offer the broad spectrum of consulting services across your entire portfolio, right? From line of business to RISE to what we do around industry as well as data, and then also about, around building business applications on BTP, right? I think the other point here is we do this through a range of tools, methods, and accelerators. And I'll just kind of comment on a couple of those. Like when we think about what we do together around our rapid discovery offering. This is our offering that really helps our clients build their business cases and gain that stakeholder alignment for their transformation initiative. I think, our rapid move is another great example, and it actually represents a lot of what you're talking about around ecosystems of ecosystems, because what rapid move allows our clients to do is really take advantage of a blue field approach to their transformation, where they get to choose sort of a selective data transition, where they're migrating a portion of their data and it's acting as a true brownfield, but then they're also selecting where they're going to drive transformation. And we do that leveraging our partnership with S&P and their tool set. So that's, a great example of this kind of ecosystems notion of where we're putting the parts together. I think, the other point here is really, those are a couple of examples of the types of accelerators we have. But really, it comes back to one of the greatest advantages we have that we can offer clients around client value on their cloud journeys is the partnership and the power of the partnership and this 52-year, enduring partnership and all the aspects of collaboration that Christine just spoke about. So super exciting. And if you want me now, Saurabh, I'm glad to comment a little bit more on the Value Gen partnership if you'd like me to do that.
Stacy, but I would open this up from the perspective of, if you look at, generative AI, even cloud, right? Cloud is now what, a 20-year-old conversation, and still we haven't seen enterprises still are struggling to adopt cloud, right? Whether it's private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. I think I first had my conversation on cloud in the 1990s or early 2000s, right? It's still, 25 years. Now, generative AI is a 15-month-old conversation for most organizations. And I think the reason why enterprises struggle with these technologies is not because the technologies themselves are bad, but because over the years we've collected so much debt, right? We talk about technology debt, but not just technology debt. There is a data debt. Nobody knows where to get that data from. There is a process debt. We are still doing these things the same darn way that we were doing, 50 years ago. And there's a skills debt. It's just so hard to find the right people who can understand both business and technical aspects of it. So as you describe this value generator concept, how I think would love to understand how this partnership is helping enterprise, pay some of these debts, or because I just don't know how we'll move to the next frontier, which we all want to get to. But at some point of time, we need to pay our debts, right?
Well, that's exactly what we see, Saurabh, and that's exactly why we created the Value Generation Partnership Initiative, because we think that there's just not enough prescriptive approach to how do you get to next generation business process, right? First of all, we have to understand what we're doing today to make it better, right? So when we look at, there's really 4 key components around the Value Generation Partnership Initiative. And those really start to answer your question, the things that we're doing under each one of those. So let's talk about next generation business processes as an example. In that first element, we're really kind of helping clients understand using Synavio what their current existing processes are. So we're going to run an adoption POC program this year, doing 40 of those for customers or more, right? And really that's kind of helping them see where they are today. It's helping them understand what best practice looks like, but also now factoring in the embedded capabilities of where SAP's added in AI, and they should be taking advantage of it. And then, one of the other things we're doing in kind of the industry innovation area is really driving a prescriptive roadmap that we worked on with our IBU at the industry level, saying, look, these are all the places where you could put in generative AI or AI more broadly. And this is whether it's a high value area or a low value area and where you should really focus your time and effort. So that was really important too. As Christine and I were setting up the partnership, it was really important that we were trying to provide those type of prescriptive roadmaps of where value would be, right? So, industry innovation is that second point. When we talk about industry innovation, that's being done collaboratively with the SAP industry business units and with our joint clients. So we committed to the marketplace in the first year of the partnership, we will build 100 of these AI solutions together. We probably already have 20 plus available. If you go out to the Value Generation Partnership Initiative website, there's already 6 videos there describing some of these. But it's really about putting that industry expertise into what are the pieces that really help accelerate the next generation of value. So if we take one that we actually released in January, it's all around a CPG application around the last mile. So think about all the elements of direct store distribution and leveraging AI to really help that driver with things like route optimization, or to help that driver understand that there is additional shelf space. So I should be dropping additional product that's been loaded onto the truck, or helping in the settlement process, right? These are the types of solutions that we're building to kind of create that next generation of value you talk about. Because when we talk about this initiative, helping customers become next generation enterprises, that means they need to be doing things like leapfrogging competition, finding those areas that really drive value. So, that's kind of the second element around industry innovation. The third element is super important when you talk about what you were talking about around technical debt and just the path forward with cloud. And it's all around next generation architecture and really customer adoption approach. So what we're talking about here is we don't think we've been prescriptive enough around approaches like clean core. Our clients are, kind of scared of that word. Man, you wrote hundreds of thousands of programs in ABAP, and now I've got to convert them all to BTP overnight. That seems like a lot. But what we want to try to lay down with the new partnership is really, again, a roadmap. Do this course, these core thing first, and it's going to be different for each client, right? But do this core thing, and then let's look at how we approach this in waves to kind of drive you to a more clean core approach over time. And, we get to use some of the new tools from SAP like LeanIX to really kind of define that best practice architecture and help, clients understand what that looks like. And then it's also about really helping them drive value in the way we deliver programs. And what we're talking about there is infusing generative AI into the way we do SAP projects. And what we mean there is using Gen AI to do things like test script, generation, or user story creation, or, the hard one that we're all working on with SAP as well are things like, ABAP code creation and actually ABAP conversion from ABAP to BTP type objects, right? So that's what we're talking about in that area. And then the last area is super important to all of us as well. And an element that Christine and I felt passionate about is we know to get all these clients to a next generation of value, to get them to rise, to get them to take advantage of the elements we're talking about, we really have to help expand this ecosystem of resources. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine a lot of the great programs we're already doing around veterans, around our women's initiatives, around our University Alliance initiatives. And we're going to put the power of those programs together and really help expand resources, as well as we're going to work on one or two new social impact programs together that really look at sort of at-risk populations as another place where we could train and add additional resources to the ecosystem. So we're super excited about the partnership, and I think it answers the question that you were just asking about how do we get to that next generation of value.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. You actually addressed all my four debts, Stacy, all process, data, technology, and skills. So that's fantastic. I think, Jason, I'll ask you another debt, which is the culture debt. You know, we all want to live in our little silos. We within the four walls of whatever we define as our organization, our function, our department. And you've been advocating this ecosystem approach, or even the ecosystem approach, for several years now, if I'm not mistaken. How do you get people? I think the first reaction is, yeah, it makes sense. But then, oh, this is my way of working. How can I do this? It gets into the cultural aspect of this, because we as humans are not geared to collaborate very well with people who are not in the same organization, in the same roof, etc. What's been your experience in sort of getting over that mindset hurdle?
The challenge is real, Saurabh, because it's like anything else, it's change. And I think you alluded to this earlier. At least I thought that's where you were going with regards to this thought of 20 years ago it was cloud. Now it's Gen AI, and there were a couple things between then and now. And it's never the technology that's the biggest challenge. It's the change. So if cloud was here 20 years ago, it didn't change that much. It was the organization that had to catch up. And so you're on a key point here. And I think that in order to get people to see the new opportunity, it starts from the market back in some cases. People believe that, I'm just going to take this large organization and change it, and then the market will get it. But too often you end up doing something that either A, it's before the market is ready. We as IBM know how that works. We've done that a few times. We were seeing AI a decade ago, and the market wasn't ready. The good thing is we hung on to it, named ourselves an AI company. Now we've come full circle, right? But what has happened is that we start to look at the market. So let's focus on the change. What have we seen? First, let's start internal to the market. First, there is a challenge inside to make sure that you have the skills and resources. And we've put lots of investments and collaborative investments, because SAP has invested back into us for skills. And so they're at the top of the list of saying, look, let's make sure you're tooled and ready to do what you're saying we're going to be able to do. And by coming up with innovative ways to create unique and industry-focused solutions that begin to open the minds of the market. Because if you just walk in and say, I got a great idea and it's on PowerPoint, it's just a great idea on PowerPoint. But when you walk through the door with SAP and it's real, and they understand how this new capability can relieve or even convert some of that organizational and technical debt, then they start to believe it. They say, oh, this is the real, and I understand what you said. So it starts with being able to have the skills and tangible content and solutions that are industry focused to get people to go, I get it. I get it. Then you have to make sure that you have the right players at the table with you. And that's the strength of the partnership. And you start to allude to this, I think, when you said, the other partners, is that when we walk through the door, we're walking through the door arm in arm with SAP at the beginning of the conversation with the client. And someone say, well, didn't you always do that? Well, not really. I don't think that everyone, and the client didn't want that, by the way. They would often say, well, let's keep SAP, as you said this, over in their corner, IBM, and then, and of course, the procurement departments love that. let's see how we can do this. And then there's also the other components that come in and say, well, what about our data? How are we going to map our processes? And well, there's Signovia as well. Okay. But we're talking to our end customer, and we have a point of sale and we have a CRM. Oh, you're trying to say Salesforce to me? Yeah, we'll walk through the door with them as well. And and you're going to use Einstein with, oh yeah, sure. That's exactly what we'll do. And we have a lot of content that we're going to put in front. So it could be video. It could be, then you probably want to talk to Adobe and Firefly. Yes. But we're going to keep everybody in their corner. Well, then we'll talk about your solution in 5 years, because that's how long it's going to take to pull all those people together if you run it that way. And that's where we lean on this long time partnership as an example. We say, look, if there's no light between us, SAP and IBM, we move faster. And we as IBM, as we've simplified, and so there's just technology and consulting. We are the only, I know Christine said there's others. Christine, you kind of gave me fuel. I get to say, there is no other company on the face of this planet that has a consulting business at scale that sits within the side of technology company other than IBM. And so with that, you put no light between the IBM capabilities, no light between SAP. You pull in the other ecosystem players and you walk through the door together. That it's hard to say I don't get it when that happens with real content, as I said before. So Rob, that's it. And I'm going to hit on something because I really going to try and preempt your ecosystem discussion, because Stacy just said it, where you think of the ecosystem I just described and a real client problem that goes from their technical depth all the way out to their end user. But then we also say, are there other things in this ecosystem of ecosystems that we can be touching on that help in other ways? So to think that we're bringing in our veterans organizations, our people at risk organizations, those are like, well, what is it? That's even a broader ecosystem. So you start to pull these things together, and what you're bringing to market starts to look extremely different and even more valuable than what someone would consider a point solution of the past.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. 50 years, Christine, that's a long time. Where do you go from here in this partnership?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's actually 52 years. We've celebrated our 50 year 2 years ago. So it's hard to imagine that we've been a partner that long, but IBM is our oldest and very much appreciated partner. And you just heard from, Jason and from Stacy, the things that make the SAP and IBM partnership unique. But, it really is around, you know, the shared ecosystem approach. I think we do that masterfully. The investments that we both make in the partnership are significant. And I think it sets us apart and allows us to demonstrate to our customers, which is the most important aspect of all of this, the differentiation, right? And helps us to accelerate their journeys to the cloud. And that's really how we bring that together. Stacy outlined the launch of the Value Generation Partnership Initiative. And honestly, the sky's the limit right now. I feel like, it's the hot topic. Everybody's coming together. We made this announcement. We had huge pickup around this announcement in the last week. So it's really exciting right now for all of us. I think with the new AI enhancements like generative AI, you've got capabilities and industry specific cloud solutions that's going to help us address our customers' unique needs and accelerate their adoption of RISE in SAP. And our 50-year partnership continues to grow stronger. And and move the industry forward as we, adopt all of these different aspects. The next step is to develop, deploy use cases for industries like manufacturing, automotive, retail, and consumer products. We already have some going in consumer, but we'll pick all of that up and start to make this real. Every customer is at a different stage on their journey to the cloud. And our goal with this initiative is to deliver value that helps them get started and ultimately, gets them on that cloud journey and transform their business. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish with all of this.
I was just going to add, Christine. I mean, I think, we both feel, after watching this partnership, Christine and I have 25 plus years running this partnership together. After watching this partnership, it's one thing to make an announcement. What we will be focused on now is exactly what Christine said, making it real. It's about delivering solutions that add value. It's about providing those roadmaps that really help these customers get to a next generation enterprise. And what does that really look like? It's up to us to kind of set that standard, help them understand the steps, and then help them see where that value is. So we'll be very focused on making it real. So I just wanted to add that, Christine.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that SAP and IBM bring to the table, I think when you bring us together, we unlock the power of relevant, reliable, and especially responsible business AI. And I don't know that others can say that as responsibly as we do. We're very aligned on that as a kind of mantra for ourselves as we work with our customers. We're already doing work with IBM to embed them, within AI, within our solutions. And now it's time to drive business outcomes to our joint customers. We don't, you know, deliver the value without the trusted partnership. So the trusted partnership becomes really critical. We've developed this over years, as we've indicated, and most importantly, the transparency between the teams, the trust between the teams, and the collaboration at all levels is really shared, and that's across the board from our top leadership all the way down into like my team across the globe and others who help make this thing real. So we really do focus together. So sky's the limit really on where we go with this partnership.
Yeah, no, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I think you can you can feel that this partnership is for real when you know you are completing each other's sentences. So so that is fascinating. But I wouldn't let you go without asking this question, right? There's so much change that's happening in our world, whether it's IBM, whether it's SAP, whether it's our customers. What is, if there was one wish that could come true that you might have, what would that be? As you and your clients and everybody is facing and looking at this change in front of us. Let me ask you, Stacy, first. What's the one wish that if you had?
My wish is that we will, is exactly what we talked about, that we hope this partnership really produces. And that's really helping clients get to a next level of value. I mean, we've had, I started, working on SAP in the 90s, right? Implementing a little bit of R2, but the early R3, right? And running very large transformation programs at my clients like Johnson and Johnson. And there were a lot of times that I could see the solution I wanted to create, but didn't have the technology to create it. And now we have the technology to create it. It's about how do we harness the power of putting those pieces together and really focusing in the areas that are going to produce the most value and then delivering that to our clients. Because I think that we would all say, we've been talking about, just like you mentioned, cloud, we've been talking about transformation for a really long time. We now have all the tools and technology to deliver value at the next level. And I think we must do that. So that would definitely be my wish.
Yeah, taking that a little further, I was just going to say, I think, you know, making it real with our customers, right? I think our customers start their journeys and getting them convinced to move to the cloud can be, a monumental task because, there's a lot of, as you said, baggage and history that's been there for years. With generative AI, I think we give them, hopefully, that competitive advantage, those competitive thoughts to move them, allow them to make those moves to transform their business and really, become more effective at what they do. And that's really our goal, is to support our customers. So that'd be my wish.
Make it real, Jason.
Saurabh, my wish is that across the market that we could get people to, and people, I mean, when I say people, enterprises and organizations ultimately are made up of individuals. And my one wish would be that we could move at dilemma speed without the dilemma. And so we saw record digital transformation during a pandemic. People were ready to move. They made decisions. It strengthened the ecosystem. It made your ecosystem of ecosystems there at HFS true, because people were going across every ecosystem they could stitch together. And if we could just drive that sense of urgency and entrepreneurship and trusted experimentation inside the organizations with trusted partners like what we have right here, the results show for themselves. And it's like short-term memory. It's just all of a sudden we forget, like, that brought results. So let's forget the dilemma and let's move at dilemma speed.
No, that's fantastic. And my wish would be that IBM and SAP are actually able to realize what this partnership offers. Because I'm telling you, that'll make work fun for people. And work has become, especially transactional work on SAP, has become so boring. I don't think it should be that. I think it should be a lot more fun. And I think that's the power of Gen AI in my mind, is it takes away the boring, mundane stuff that we as humans don't want to do, and do the fun, creative work that we want to do. So I hope this partnership succeeds. I think everybody who's listening to this can see that you guys gel well together, and I think this is a great example of our one ecosystem coming to life. So thank you all for spending some time with us. I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else who's listening to this learned as well.
Well, Saurabh, my thank you is to HFS for leading this thought leadership effort, and also to our two strong leaders here, because there's something on the screen that I always love, is when I see two women execs that have been in the business for as long as they have, and at the top of their organizations. And that's the other part of this ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of diversity, and they're making it happen.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.